All right, so we are here now for WrestleMania Sunday, Night 2, WrestleMania Vegas, the world's greatest build for the world's greatest WrestleMania, potentially, right? So I'm just going to get right into it. We have, which was recently announced, the IC ladder match, the six-way ladder match, which recently just added Hall of Famer Rey Mysterio, so it should be a super awesome match. But we have the defending champion Penta against WrestleMania debuters in Javon Evans and Dragon Lee. We got JD McDonough, part of the Judgment Day, Rusev, the returning Rusev from earlier this year, and like I said, Rey Mysterio. Super satisfied with like all the people kind of in this match. They've been kind of carrying the kind of middle of Raws and of Raws, like specifically I feel like with bell to bell with a lot of the matches that have been put on this year. And I think to have kind of some of the best wrestlers in the mid card essentially all battling it out for this IC title, which is like the prize of the division, that workhorse title, and it being kind of like Penta said in his kind of promo announcing the match, the ladder match is his kingdom. Everyone involved here, I think we're gonna have some really fun spots with everybody involved. This should be a really awesome show opener that's gonna like dazzle, just kind of like those TLCs of old with the the Hardys, Dudleys, and Christians. Your Money in the Bank matches you used to have at Mania. I think you're gonna get a lot of really fun, awesome spots here, and I do think Penta is gonna retain. I mean, I kind of do see. Yeah, I kind of see Penta retaining here just because I think he's probably the most popular out of everybody kind of in this match, besides maybe Rey Mysterio. But I do think Penta is kind of primed to be one of the next major players within the WWE before all is said and done for him. And I think he has at least another 5 to possibly 10 years, at the level he's kind of doing it. So when you're kind of in your prime, I think you might as well, put the pedal to the metal there. So I do think they're not going to let up on Penta. I think he's going to come on top, and within his domain at the ladder match, I think he's going to come on top. So I see Penta kind of winning that. This might be the match of the whole weekend, with the potential of the crazy spots that could be done and what they do with this match. So we'll see. The next match on the card, which I'm surprised this is so kind of early on in the card, but we have Obafemi and Brock Lesnar, which probably has had the best build, has been the most solid feud, and probably what most people are looking forward to. I think Obafemi is, no pun intended, genuinely the next big thing, and they've been going about it kind of completely perfectly with how they want to kind of introduce him into the fold of WWE. I mean, within the main roster, he kind of, he had a couple of matches with Rusev where he won in dominating fashion. He squashed everyone that was kind of coming up. He essentially immediately got kind of over with the fans with his entrance and his look, and for him to challenge Lesnar was kind of a wet dream for a lot of fans that maybe would have been something that would happen down the line. But for it to be essentially fast tracked and part of Oba's ascension is actually the most perfect move we can do, especially when Brock, despite being the beast and whatever, is essentially on the twilight, or within the twilight of his career. This is like the perfect opportunity for us to essentially pass that mantle of destroyer or beast to someone new who can kind of prop that up and be the next big kind of final boss of WWE. Everyone, I think, is really pining for Oba to win here, but in WWE booking, I can kind of see them trying to extend this out to another big four, where Brock maybe tries to cheat essentially to get the win over Oba here. And while that kind of does sour things, it does kind of make Oba look good, because Brock had to essentially cheat to find a way to win, which is literally rare or uncommon for Brock essentially. And I think he's only done it to like people like Cena. It would kind of put Oba in rarefied air and prolong the feud. The thing is, though, I do think that if they want to capitalize on this Mania and essentially from the gates make Oba a world title contender, AEW here over Lesnar essentially establishes him like that, since the fans are already essentially feverishly waiting for him to ascend, right? So I do think Oba is going to probably take it here, and it's going to kind of hard launch his, either, I think, ascension to the WWE title, where he might actually take out Orton if he wins over Cody, which I can genuinely see, or since he is on Raw, maybe he does take it from Reigns, whoever is kind of the top heel champion of whichever brand. I can kind of see him either winning a Rumble or winning one of the big four stipulations to earn a world title shot after taking out Lesnar, and which should be a really fun match. Anytime Lesnar is genuinely respects a guy and is willing to bump and sell, we get some of the best matches of the year, because Lesnar is, at the end of the day, whether I like him or hate him, he is an amazing pro wrestler when he's motivated to put in good work and tell a great story. I see him kind of doing the work to put over our Oba over here, and which should be a really fun big monster match. Like I said too, we just got the Obafemi promo kind of on Raw, where this is really the first extended period of time for him to kind of really cut a promo, and it's probably one of his best promos he's ever cut, even in from NXT, where he's had a lot of really good promos. Just that cherry on top of it has rallied the fans and the casual fans, especially with Oba against Lesnar, so I do think all the momentum is shifting in Oba's favor and should really, result in one of the newest, biggest superstars of our generation. And our next match, which I guess you could say is technically on the non-first hour card, that pre-show card, I guess, would be Sami Zayn versus Trick Williams for the United States title. Now, this build's been kind of interesting since they essentially sidelined many of the participants in the U.S. title mid-card scene to essentially tell the story of this match, with Sami Zayn essentially being thrusted in this position when he was kind of absent since he lost the title initially in his open challenge run, which was, I think, a really decent run that elevated the title and allowed, Ilya and Melo to kind of run with it and then, keep that title relevant, essentially. With Sammy kind of essentially coming back and taking that spot, it feels like, from those characters. But, the heat is attributed to Little Yachty's involvement with Trick. To me, is kind of lame. I think it would have been more interesting maybe do the Trick Mello Mania match, especially since we were essentially being teased it and they were already intertwined with each other essentially for this US title, regardless of the Sami Zayn involvement. But I kind of get where they're going, where Sami Zayn has always been a draw, you know what I mean, and him and Williams is kind of a money match in the fact that that's the story is, that's how Trick kind of debuted on SmackDown in a way. So there is a story there that you can kind of see the thorough line for. So I understand the reasoning. It just does suck for Melo and for Ilya for the fact that they've contributed so much and put their bodies through so much just to kind of be left out on the card. But seems to be a trend these last couple of Manias to kind of have people be vying for that Mania spot and in the end kind of lose it as part of the story. Regardless though, I do kind of see Rick winning it here. I don't really see a reason to have Sami Zayn kind of go over Trick, just because I don't really see the reason for Sami Zayn really be holding the title right now anyway, except for kind of as a prop piece for Melo and Trick to kind of rally and juggle with, you know what I mean? So I kind of do see Trick Williams ascending and maybe winning the title here and having his moment, and that parallel of Melo and Trick, and how Trick seems to be just extremely upward trajectory, whereas Melo has had a rocky start, I think will be touched upon and maybe further kind of elaborated upon once they get to properly feud post-Mania. We'll see kind of what happens with that, but I do see Trick kind of taking it over Sami Zayn. Even if Melo tries to get involved, I don't think it will be to Sammy's help, you know what I mean? I think he'll try to, but it end up allowing Trick to kind of take the W, especially with the Little Yachty is kind of his henchman right now, which I think Yachty's actually doing a pretty good job. That's one of the involvements, celebrity involvements, I don't think is actually that bad. It's pretty fine. He's not necessarily wrestling, he's just kind of an entourage role, which I think most celebrities should be, kind of in that cheerleading role, and getting overzealous, then getting the wrestlers into issues because of how overzealous they get. I think that's a fun classic kind of story that you can always do, that's I think super WrestleMania casual friendly and doesn't muddy and disrespect the wrestling itself, right? Kind of seeing Trick take it over Sammy here, which should be a really fun match too. They've had some good stuff on SmackDown, so I expect kind of no less from Sammy, one of the best in the world, and Trick, one of the next upcoming top stars of this generation. Another match I'm kind of looking forward to, but I did a video kind of on how I didn't like how they spoiled kind of what would happen in the match, but this is essentially one of the one-on-one grudge matches we're getting at Mania. Finn Balor as the Demon versus Dominic Mysterio in essentially what would be the Judgment Day, I guess, breakup arc of Finn leaving, essentially, and Dom kind of assuming that male leadership role, at least, even though like Liv is really the leader right now anyway. I'm really excited for this match. I did think they should have left the Demon as a surprise, just because, you know, it would have been a super fun surprise pop to get, or some sort of segment with more fanfare, which they kind of did on this past Raw. But I felt like since you already announced the with the Demon graphic, there's not really any mystery or allure to what the Demon might look like this time, or like what's going to happen when you kind of present it in a graphic so plainly. But regardless, it should be a really fun match between these two. They're super familiar with each other as they've been in the ring for so long these last couple years. You know, Finn got to see Dom genuinely grow into a great heel, and for them to really be able to have this showcase on a WrestleMania match, I think is really cool for the both of them, and for fans that have been following the storyline, in the thorough line of the Judgment Day, and the whole, you know, Dom turning on Edge and Ray, and him becoming Dirty Dom through, you know, his inclusion in the Judgment Day, and how Finn has taken hand in that creation and now understands he needs to snuff that out storyline wise, is super fun, and one of those unique, rare moments in pro wrestling where we get to see these things really play out uniquely in how they do in pro wrestling. It's kind of hard here because I think, you know, Dom obviously has had the year he's had, so, you know, to kind of stop that momentum and have him potentially lose against the Demon is troubling, but I don't think it would really hurt him as much as the return of the Demon losing to Dominic Mysterio, as they potentially want, you know, a big face in Finn to vie for a world title, maybe not necessarily grab it, but be in like a Sami Zayn position where you can always have this baby face essentially challenge for it, and have them in that type of, like, I guess, programmer slot. And I think if they're going to want that moving forward for Finn, and if they want the Demon to become more prevalent, there definitely has to be a W kind of for him here. It doesn't have to be in any dominating fashion. I mean, it could still be obviously a competitive match, but I do think Dom needs to sell the legitimacy and the danger of Finn Balor as a Demon, and Finn Balor is in general, just like CM Punk kind of did, that really reinvigorated, you know, Finn's whole brand initially after that world title feud. So I'm looking forward to the match because, you know, both can go. Finn's one of the best in the world, you know, Bullet Club founder, you know how it be. So I kind of see him taking it as the Demon this time, and eventually down the line challenging for the world title. Should be really fun. Can't wait to see the Demon entrance and kind of start doing the hand miming and stuff like that again with him when he comes out. So that should be really, really fun. Now we have the penultimate main event. We have the WWE Women's Championship match between Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley, and this could be a main event if, you know, we gave it the proper kind of build in time and context for these two to be teased and then eventually fight each other. But in WrestleMania fashion and WWE fashion, we kind of gotten a short, streamlined build in like the last couple of like months, essentially, that, you know, resulted in, you know, which is, I think is cool, a reformation of the baddie squad that Jade kind of used to have in AEW, with now Michin and BFAB against a face, Rhea Ripley, who essentially now has focuses on that title since, you know, everything kind of with the tag team division with her and Io Sky kind of collapsed, right? So, you know, this kind of grudge that Jade and Rhea have is kind of more about being alpha women, you know what I mean? And that is completely a story on its own that you can play, but I do think the fire comparatively that like you might see right now in Stephanie and Liv is not as intense between Rhea and Jade, and I think it's just because there's a lack of familiarity between each other, so it doesn't feel necessarily as personal. I do think though, like, the whole kind of wanting to be the best though is completely valid if they kind of play into that more, but it just does kind of feel like there's a lack of really a center narrative between kind of what's happening here, and it could be just due to how last minute a lot of this was probably put together. But regardless, on paper, this is an awesome dream match, and, you know, right now we kind of have a heel Jade out of it too, with a cool faction that makes use of Michin and BFAB, who are both really talented people who should be getting more time, and I think this is the perfect way to kind of go about, you know, using them. So I think overall it should be a really fun match. It should be a highlight match too, and it could potentially be Jade's best match. She's had a lot of, I think ever since really turning heel and going solo, she's kind of really found her stride, and they've done a really good job of showcasing her strengths and talents, and she's done a really good job too of selling, and you know, her timing has gotten so much better. I don't know, it's just like it feels like she's really coming to her prime. I know a lot of people have been naysaying and are really nitpicky about kind of how the reign's been booked, but I do think Jade is like a legitimate like WWE champion. I do think that the timing and the matchup of her against Rhea is timely and it does make sense. It's just the way that WWE themselves have kind of booked, you know, the routine attacks and stuff like that kind of make it feel not as, you know, heated, you know. But in general, I do kind of see Rhea taking this, just because I think Rhea's kind of in that point right now where they kind of want her to win the big ones right now when it counts, just because she kind of is the flagship woman of WWE. And I kind of see, and since she is like even still so young, you know, I think Jade, this being her first world title, you know, she can kind of fall down the card a little bit, or, you know, at least just even lose here, and maybe, you know, as a heel start to kind of you know, tear up the rest of the card, and maybe even take like the US title belt from Julia and start kind of running rampant with that to really build up steam and heat as a heel champion. The lack of defenses and lack of that until you know, recently, essentially, with the whole reformation of that baddie squad, or not reformation but formation of the baddie squad, you know, we didn't really get too much context with her with the title too much. You know, she was kind of doing the I'm that bitch thing, but like we didn't get enough of that in practice. But regardless, this should be a really fun match. I kind of just see Rhea taking it here, just because I do think, because they might have not really, you know, put pedal to the metal on Jade's title reign after she won it after Tiffany. They might want to shake things up with having Rhea on SmackDown being the WWE champion, which I kind of see happening here. So I do kind of see Rhea taking it. Should be a really fun match. These are two powerhouses going at it. Should be super fun, super fun. And then I think we have our main event of WrestleMania 42, the big main event. We have CM Punk, the defending World Heavyweight Champion, defending his title against Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief, OTC. This should be really fun. They've both, Punk and Roman, are masters of their craft of making this completely personal, taking the real world stuff, taking what the casual audience knows, what we, the hardcore wrestling fans, know, and putting all that context into the feud and taking us on this ride, you know, on this journey of you know, why these two might have some disdain for each other, and how Punk has instigated, has done famously what Punk has always done, and poked and prodded and got into Reigns' head. And I think Reigns has kind of done the same thing for Punk. It's been a super fun build. I think this is one of the few ones where, you know, even with Reigns winning at first, you kind of did know that this would be really fun to just see these two kind of chop it up in the ring and see what they kind of come up with in terms of how they can keep it interesting. And the fact that these two are at the top of their game, both of them just being in the ring every week talking to each other, was extremely compelling. And we saw how it escalated and it got extremely personal by the end, to where, you know, they are throwing each other through, you know, tables and everything, because we're cursing dead parents, you know, we're lambasting age, we're talking about, you know, personal and private, you know, work relation things that have happened and how people were brought into the company. Just super well, kind of textbook, kind of like quasi meta promo stuff that, you know, that we all eat up. But super I think fun build, and a lot better. I think the main events, even despite the Pat McAfee bullshit, like these two main events have been built better than WrestleMania 41's main events, in my opinion. With everything being said, I do think CM Punk is going to retain his title here. I don't think we're going to have simply just another Reigns win here. I think a lot of people see Reigns kind of taking that world title to elevate it, but I think CM Punk's done a perfect job of doing that by being the kind of the brand ambassador for the Netflix title, essentially. And, you know, while Roman is the bigger star at this point, his inconsistencies and kind of it seems like sunsetting of his pro wrestling career, I think, to me, lends it for me to believe that Punk will be kind of retaining here, and that maybe we'll see a story kind of down the line of essentially a rematch here, where Reigns eventually does take the title, or eventually gets the win over Punk in maybe a non-title situation. Just because I don't think right now, especially with Reigns' schedule and how part-time he seems to be, there's really a point to having Reigns kind of go over, especially if he's not going to be present on Raws. I do see them kind of having Roman maybe take the L here to cement CM Punk's main event WrestleMania legacy as well too, and for him to have kind of a triumphant WrestleMania moment as well with him with the title that can kind of cement his legacy as a top WWE guy. I do kind of see CM Punk taking it and maybe making everybody feel good, especially if I think they're going to have Randy kind of, beat Cody the night before. I think they want to send everyone home kind of happy. I think either way, the fans don't mind Reigns or Punk winning. I think this is kind of a W for the fans, this whole feud, and a rare W, I think, for WWE right now in a time where a lot of their builds have felt kind of weak. This main event is a WrestleMania main event and has always felt like it when they've stepped in the ring with each other. It's a big fight feel. You knew even before the Survivor Games, War Games stuff, like you knew that this was eventually probably going to be what they wanted to do, and I think it's delivered and more. And all that now needs to kind of happen is the match itself and be as entertaining and as big and as spectacular as the build up to it, and I think CM Punk winning will be part of that. So overall, we'll kind of see how the rest of Mania kind of shakes up. We have John Cena kind of hosting it as well, so he'll be sprinkled throughout there. I do think there should be some sort of Gunther and Cena kind of interaction, but that's just me. Maybe they'll keep it lighthearted and happy. But overall, that's who I kind of think is going to be winning and losing at Mania. I think overall, while there's been a lot of doom and gloom from me even about a lot of the kind of booking decisions, I do think this Mania is going to be actually a lot more entertaining than 41, and I think both the main events are going to be a lot better than Mania 41's main event. So I actually am really looking forward to kind of this card. It's a lot of debuting WrestleMania debuts, and you can really see the new generation kind of taking hold as well here. So I'm extremely happy about that, and I can't wait to see kind of how the cards are laid out. So let me know what you guys kind of think. Let me know what you guys' predictions are, and let me know if you guys are going to be watching WrestleMania this weekend. Take care.